but let me and let's. I want to start moving into some of the. This may be the hardest question you have. It may not be the hardest question you
Tell
have
me.
of this interview. But as a youth pastor, I am often asked, not
Yes.
me, but in the group,
Mhm.
but I see questions. What movies do you recommend? Other youth pastors looking for movies because youth pastors are looking for movies to either take their kids to during the summer. They're looking for movies to show at lock-ins. They're looking for movies to show at some family night, something like that. And of course, then there's a long list of those. And I never have a faith-based movie that comes to mind because, to be honest with you, most of them that I have encountered are not very good. They're not well written. They're not. Some of them are not well acted. So the question is then, why are mass marketed faith based movies traditionally so poorly written and made, and what can we do about this?
Well, it was a two-tier question because that's kind of how I started with Cindy. Cindy and I started mission together, and I met her in a Bible study class. And as I said, I was raised Catholic, and so we had made our action movies, and all of a sudden the market died, and there was no part. And people sometimes go to drink. I went to a Bible study class, and Cindy, well, they would ask me, go to John 23, 21, and I'm going, okay, do I go right on the Bible or do I left? Can you help me out here? Because I don't know where it's at. And I met some wonderful women, and Cindy had just completed, I don't know if you're Cindy Bond, she did I Can Only Imagine and so forth, and
Oh yeah.
Redeeming Love. We became partners, but she had at that time, which I was not in the faith-based, had done an animation called The Ten Commandments. The
Hmm.
Ten Commandments, and it starred voices, Alfred Molina, Christian Slater, Ben Kingsley, and so forth. And she kept coming to me because she knew I did distribution and said, Siobhan, would you please take my movie? And I'm looking at Cindy going, Cindy, I do Crash Boom Bam. I don't do animation for starters. And second of all, this is a a Bible movie. I don't do that. And she goes, please, please, I trust only you. I'm like, okay, let me go talk to my partner, George, and see what he says. And I went to George and I said, we're at the markets already. We have a big booth. And I said, we'll put one poster up. We'll see how it goes. But it's not going to hurt us. We'll get to put the faces of Christian Slater, Alpha Molino, Ben Kingsley. It can't do us any harm. Let's see how we can do. And I can help this girl who's in my Bible study with this movie. Now, Cindy had domestic. So I didn't have domestic. I had all foreign. So we go to the market. Guess what?
What?
I sold the world. Every single country in the world, except one territory. And the
Okay.
funny part
Pretty good.
was this one territory, I thought was going to be my first territory.
Huh?
What do you think it was?
Was it in the Middle East somewhere?
Israel.
I was gonna say that. Interesting.
Yes. And you know what they said to me?
What?
We already know the story.
Huh.
Which is, in a way, they didn't want a Christian person telling their story, which is what it was, more than anything else.
Sure.
But again, I'm learning at that time, not that the Ten Commandments is a great movie, because if you look at it, the animation was kind of floating on the air and so forth. But the units that these people were buying because they didn't have enough product that entertained them enough. So I went back to Cindy and I said, Cindy, this is, we got to do something, and we got to have at least enough product, because as you go to a market, buyers want to be consistent. And that's what I had done with the 150. We have to have product to make sure we make this thing come about, not one. So we set up Mission Pictures together. Cindy and I founded Mission Pictures, and we had 75. Most of the titles were from PureFlix before they were their own distribution. And we got other people's films, and we took them for international. And literally, we created a mission night in South Africa. They bought once a week, they would have a faith-based movie for on Sunday night. And we did the same thing with Televisa in Mexico. I mean, at that time, Mexico was all horror and people's bodies being cut up. I mean, it was horrible. And these two girls in Mexico were courageous enough to take the 52. We did in Central America, some of the countries. So we built something that really wasn't there. I mean, most people were looking at
Sure.
us when we first started saying we were crazy. Even my partner is going, Siobhan, 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 Siobhan. What are we doing? What are we doing? But it built. But what we learned through it all between Cindy and I is that even with the Pureflix titles, we went back to David in that time and we said, look, let's create not a bad version, but kind of two versions, if you want to call it. We'll call it the mainstream version and then the faith-based version. Okay. So if you have a script and you have a scene where he goes to see the pastor, do that same scene with a friend or a parent or whatever, and you can flop it out. You can put the priest in it, and then the music tracks and the dialogue would stay. I mean, they say the same, so you don't have to do music and effects again. But
Right.
flap it up, because if you push one religion over another, then you can't sell the mainstream televisions. And that was what was buying the most at that time. So
Right.
France wouldn't take it, Germany, and we wanted to become more of a seed planter with the faith base, but make sure we can get the most monies, because all it comes down to, Paul, is money. Are you making the monies to make better product?
Yeah, you got to be able to sell the movie so that you can
So,
fund more projects,
yes.
right? Animation, I find, like example, you look at Prince of Egypt, let's say,
Mhm.
right? Movies like that, animation, faith-based animation, I found at least, does it fairly well. They can do, there's
Yeah.
something about animation and faith-based animation that comes across very well. I mean, my kids watch Veggie Tales, for
Mhm.
decades,
Yeah.
right? But when it comes down to in real life people movies, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to call names out because I grew up with them, and I had the pressure on me as a youth pastor to say, well, Paul, are you going to take the kids to go see God's Not Dead, or are you going to go
Yeah.
take the kids to see what was it, Facing the Giants? Facing the Giants, I'll tell you what, was the first Christian movie I think I saw early on, and I saw a preview of it, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't stand it. I just couldn't
Really?
stand it. I watched it and I went, this is not real. There's something about this. It felt like pandering, and it felt like, what, I understand, I get it. There's lots of funny moments, and I'm not knocking directors. I'm not doing all that. I'm saying, look, these movies should come
Yeah.
out. But listen, the guy at the end who stands up in the wheelchair, okay, that's fine. But I like my movies a little grittier. I like my
Mhm.
movies where things maybe don't quite work out the way you think they're going to work out. Why do we have this model, Siobhan, of these movies that come out that seem to, that I know they want to reach the audience. I know they want to do that, but why is it so often heavy-handed? Why aren't we making, look, example, Hacksaw Ridge, great movie, has
Mhm.
faith in it,
Yes,
right?
it does.
Great movie. But it seems like if it's a direct Christian movie made by an entirely, Christian production company or something like that, it's very different. And how, why is that?
Well, even with Cindy, it seems like the Christian group wants a certain model of product, even if we go outside the model. Because I mean, Cindy and I were partners, and she had Redeeming Love then. And I kept saying to Cindy, I said, even though she made the movie and it turned out really well and it's shot beautifully, the community didn't support her, and it's because she went off that grid, even though it has Frances River, Francine Rivers is one of the number one writers.
Yep.
If you risk it, you're risking that community,
Yes.
and they don't
Yes.
want you. They want the box. They want the
Um,
box.
Oh, Siobhan, I don't want the box. I grew
I
up in
don't
the
blame
80s.
you.
I don't want the
I don't blame
box.
you.
I
But
want I want movies like Martin Scorsese's The Silence. I want
okay.
movies that are done well, that are not gratuitous. There's no there's no all this in it. It's a well-made movie. I mean, I mean, I'm sitting there going, wow, I could show clips of this to my students and say, this is what, from a historical perspective, from a faith-based perspective, I can share that with them. Is there any way, or do you see, can I ask you this? Do you see an upswing in better quality Christian movies being made going forward? Now, Jesus Revolution, good movie.
I loved it. I liked it. I liked it very much. And it was
Kelsey Grammer
it was not,
sells it.
it was not, yeah, it was not so much in the box. I think it opened up. And that's where which is the same problem Cindy and I used to have, is that I don't want to convert people. I just want to make them have its choice. You make the choice of what you want to do. But I don't want to be putting one religion above the other. I want to put seed planters and let you think it through.
Right. You don't want to be preachy, right?
I don't want to be preaching. No,
right.
no, I don't want to be preaching.
Movies that tend to preach hard, like A God's Not Dead,
or God's Not Dead, yes. And that's Pureflix. That's Pureflix, and that's their mission, and that's fine.
That's fine. Everybody's got their lane.
Yeah, my lane is just inspirational. My lane's inspirational, good content. If you want the book is religious. Our movie for everybody is more mainstream.